I'm Lori Sponigal. I'm pastor of Emmanuel Presbyterian Church. Kelly asked me to host today. I said, of course, sure. I love creative worship. We at Emmanuel have been doing creative worship, but I've been pastoring for 26 years, and every opportunity I have to do something creative in worship, I think it's great. So there aren't a lot of parameters. Today is the pilot, so I'm not intending to talk to you a lot. So I hope some of you have come with, well, this is what we've done before, ideas. But just so you know where I come from, I have always served small churches. And there is an amazing gift often overlooked in the small church in that it can be an environment that's a little bit more flexible. I have found anyway, and have had churches where there's been an openness to trying different things. So a couple of things to make sure that you are aware of. There are some great resources out there that are kind of created, right? They're created by these wonderful companies, so you can purchase them kind of lock, stock, and barrel, and they take out the need to do some of the creative formatting on your own. And I've found them to be really helpful. So I know some of you are familiar, because I know, Eileen, you've used them before, but there is a company called Worship Design Studio. I think I shared that with you. Marcia McPhee has seasonal choices for every season, including Advent. It's about a $300 for the year fee, so it is a little bit costly. And I have found their site to be a little bit challenging to manage, but I used them for a fall series that we did, and they have some great ideas, liturgies included. Creative elements are always part of what they do, and there's a pretty robust like group that you can chat with. The other, which somehow disappeared off my screen, is a Sanctified Art. For those who are not familiar, much smaller group, much easier to work with, but each resource is about $160 for a series, so it can get pricey pretty quickly. But worship's included. There are some resources for artwork that they use. Their Advent series is How Does a Weary World Rejoice, is paired with the Luke Lectionary this year. So those are just two quick and easy places to look if you are
Lori,
interested in Yep.
This is Eileen. I have not done a lot of mining the Worship Design Series website, but a Sanctified Art, even if you don't get the program, is a lovely source for just making your head think differently. And they release certain resources free for everyone off of their website. I also have found that if you've decided that you want to do it, there's a 10% discount early in the offer season, which helps a little too. But I started looking at them and being inspired just by some of their website content before I dove in. So
thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else have experience with either one or another resource that you would like to kind of along those same lines?
This is Paul. Paul. I actually, having just moved from Heartland Presbytery in Kansas, Missouri, I was part of the Pastoral Leadership Revitalization program going on through the Synod of Mid-America, and they just had a retreat with Sanctified Art, and that I went to last month, and I would agree, it's a wonderful group. As part of the cohort, we're lucky enough to get the next 4 bundles free as part of that service. So I'm really looking forward to using it for Advent, and the resources that they provide, the art, the ideas. Some of the things that we did were great ice-breaking ideas, including a tablecloth where we had different patterns, material, and other things. We just picked out whatever we felt called to place on the different individuals that were there at the retreat. And then Anne, the presenter, who's an employee of Sanctified Art, went later and ironed those on there, and that was our tablecloth on the Lord's table when we partook of communion at the retreat. So ideas like that. And one of my cohort members, that's what she did the following weekend when they took communion. Really neat idea. But in addition to that, there's devotionals that are part of the packet. There's even a book that you could turn into a play for the Christmas season, the Christmas story. I haven't looked at too much of this in detail yet, but there's a lot of information there, and it's great for churches of any size. I'm with you on the kind of the smaller size churches that and it's flexible, and they're very flexible too on the pricing, from what I was told. Anyway, I'm talking too much, so I'm very excited to be using Sanctified Art, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have other resources that you found helpful? Yep, Eileen.
If you're not looking for a whole program, but rather some supplements or just some different ideas, Presbyterian Outlook puts out every year a devotional, and it has been, I have not looked at this year's. So in past years, it's been a 8.5 by 11 sheet that I stuff in the bulletin. It's for 1 week, and it's very painless, and it adds to your Advent, whatever you're doing. It gives folks who say, I can't do a devotional, I don't have time. I had one of those folks come up to me and say, this works, I tape it to my mirror, because the devotion part is about this, has been about this long. She said, I can do that in the morning. So that's been something that I'm not sure I would have looked there for that, but they have some pretty good resources too. And it was $25 or $30, and you download them, and then you can copy as many as you want, color, black and white, whatever.
Thanks. Go ahead, Siri.
We've used those in the past too. Jill Dunfield, when she was in charge of the Outlook, did them, and it was exactly as you described. When she left, we found that they were still lovely resources, still $20 to $30 for, you know, a downloadable thing, but they stopped being compressed into that one sort of, which was a shame, because it made it tricky for us. I don't think we've still quite figured it out, because they didn't stuff into bulletins quite as nicely, so we would have a stack of them, but they just didn't get picked up in the same way. So still good resources, but that element has diminished over the last couple of years.
We used that last year and gave everyone a copy. There was good reviews and bad reviews. It's a shame that it isn't smaller.
So just pulling back a little bit to thematic. So if you're not interested in, you know, holistic, you know, buying somebody else's product, a couple of thoughts for things that I've done before in churches I've served. One year we did a series we entitled "The Heavens Are Telling," and took the four angel stories and used that as the focus, which people of course love because it's not the traditional Isaiah passages for Advent, and you go right into the whole birth narrative. And at the time, it was pre-screen. And we had an artist in the church, and she had agreed that each week she was going to create an angel in we had a king size bed sheet that she was bold enough to try to paint on. And in one corner she did one angel, and the net, so each of the 4 weeks you watched the artwork grow. And then she created the nativity, the manger in the middle. It was beautiful, and it was simple, but it was something that we completely created ourselves. So that would be an easy theme to pick up if you wanted to do something creative. Last year we did a series using the Isaiah text called Savoring the Season, or no, sorry, Sacred Ordinary. That was last year, Sacred Ordinary. And we picked up the different elements, the root from Jesse. And so we were using each of those images to create something in the space. So we had trees one week that appeared, and then we the last week was the child, and I had a very creative person ask for people's baby pictures, and she put them on these wood discs that she got from Sam's Club, or not Sam's Club, from probably Michael's or Dollar Store or somewhere, and put them on there so everybody could see the baby pictures. And then everyone who brought a picture in was able to take that home as a memento of the year. So we put the theme on the back and the year on the back, and it was a lot of fun. I have over the years had Christmas trees in the sanctuary and tried to find a way to include that as part of worship. So for the year that we did Heavens Are Telling, we invited people to bring in an angel ornament. And that was how we decorated the sanctuary tree. And then at the end of the season, we put them in brown bags, and everybody got to take home an angel. So it was kind of a nice memento again from the season on that year for their tree. So it's a little participatory part of it that I like. Any themes that have worked for you, or that you found meaningful over the years? Anybody wants to share?
Could I?
Yeah, Laura,
like-
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I want to ask a question. We have some material called How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And I
Mhm.
wanted to know if anybody had used that Advent material.
Not familiar with it. Anyone?
That is why I came here.
Sorry, Nancy.
Where did it come from, Nancy? Can you tell us a little bit about where it came from?
I thought I maybe
Um,
had it in my phone.
I don't
but
know, some,
Okay, yeah.
it's put out, I don't have it with me right now. I'm at a session meeting, but I don't know, it's put out by some, you can easily get to it. You just type it in on a Google search. But the material, from what I read, is, you guys, we're not on mute anymore. The material, from what I can tell, seemed really, really good, and it takes the story of the Grinch and it points out ways that we could take lessons from that for Advent.
Nice.
And it's
Thank you,
not,
Nancy.
it isn't horrible. I mean, it's not super lightweight and it's not heavy, but it's intergenerational and just look interesting.
Thanks. Matt, did you want to say something?
Oh yeah, so your Angels series I thought was really helpful. I like the idea of progressive visuals. I think that really helps people track and connect, and it gives something to anticipate a little bit throughout the season. But I did a series on the songs of Advent. So you start with Mary's song, the Magnificat, and then Zechariah's song, and then there's the Angels song or the Shepherd's song, and then Simeon's song is the last one.
Nice.
So that was a fun kind of, to put a different angle on some of these familiar texts. And then another one that I've done before is called Advent Conspiracy. Is anyone familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a theme that can work. Some people do it completely apart from the sermon series, but you can also make it, kind of the theme of the sermon series. But for those who aren't familiar, it starts with worship fully, and then it goes to spend less, and then give more, and then love all, I think is the last one.
It's Michael Slaughter, I think, from
Yeah, I don't know
Ginghamsburg
who,
United Methodist Church. Yeah. Yeah.
there you go. So I don't know the background of it. It used to have a website, and there was lots of kind of communal open source resources that came together on that, and it hasn't been well tended. So I think you can still find stuff online, but it's you kind of have to pick through it and add your own to it. But it's still doable, and people respond well to it.
What
So
was the name
Gingham's
of it again? I'm sorry, what was the name of the program again?
Advent Conspiracy. It came out of a church called Ginghamsburg United Methodist Church, and they do a lot, or used to do a lot of creative stuff, and used to do a lot of conferences. I was in Ohio at the time that a lot of that came out, and my memory was one year they had decided that to encourage their congregation, which it's a mega church, to give to the Sudan instead of giving gifts to each other. And they ended up raising some incredible amount of money for relief effort. So that's the spend less, give more theory. So it's a little bit about alternative giving. But good suggestion. Thank you.
What was the fourth thing after give more? I didn't hear that, Matt.
I think it's love all.
Love all, yeah. Yeah. Any other series that have worked for you, or things that you've tried?
I don't know if it's so much as a series, but it was something that I think we'll probably be bringing back this year that was somewhat born of necessity last year. So our longtime pastor retired in July of 22, and which means that, of course, the worship team's working double time to fill the pulpit, especially when everyone was coming back from the pandemic. And we ended up incorporating the dressing of the sanctuary into the service. So we made all of the we sang all 7 verses of O Come, O Come, Emmanuel, but after every 2 verses did some aspect of the sanctuary. So I think there's one that had to do with banners, one that had to do with the paraments, changing of the paraments, and I think the last one was, of course, bringing in the Advent wreath. And there was a little bit of a descriptor for each one, and that formed the base of our worship service. That day we didn't have a guest, any pulpit supply, so we did what we've had been doing on the days that we didn't have pulpit supply, which was to read a text and then have a discussion, and that's worked fairly well. But instead of just having a sort of more open-ended discussion about the chapter or whatever it was that we read one of a lengthy Isaiah. It was much longer than you would typically read do for a reading, and then talked about how do you keep Advent from getting hijacked by Christmas, or Xmas, maybe it would be what hijacks Christmas. And in some ways a discussion like we're having now about how do we observe it, or what are ideas that people can have to sort of keep it meaningful and keep it keep connected to things. And I think it worked out very well. And I suspect that as we look into this year, rather than having the little elves show up, the Friday before worship and make everything fancy and new, I think there's something to be said to involving the entire congregation in the act of decorating the church or preparing the church for Advent.
Thanks, Sari. I did see your question, Matt, about Christmas Eve. I'm going to come back to that. I want to keep us on the flow of some worship ideas first. I did want to share, one other thought about Advent candle lighting, right? So that's always the, what are you going to do for Advent lighting, this part of the liturgy? One thing I've done before that has been really kind of sweet is that having different groups in the church, or just asking the church as a whole to respond to the prompt, hope is, love is, joy is, peace is, and it sort of becomes this kind of almost poetic response that it's just completely different every year. So one year I had, like the quilting group do one of them, and the choir do one of them, and the women's group do one, and the kids do one, and it was just neat. And then other years I've just given it to the whole congregation and seen what comes back. So it's kind of an easy way to do a collaborative candle lighting.
Did you have them speak up from the thing, or were the remarks prepared ahead of time?
I had them send them in advance. Yeah. But that's a great idea, Siri, to have it just kind of in the moment. And if people are prepared for it, I think that can be lovely.
And we combined the two last year. We had some semi-prepared. We asked everybody, we put it together in a liturgy, and had the kids did all the descriptors as they lit the candle. So they got little tiny
Nice.
parts. We have one grown-up child who can manage about 3 words, and we were able to involve him too with that.
Nice. Other creative things you've done for Advent candle lighting?
Not for Advent candle lighting, but if there's comes a time to talk about banners, we did something a few years ago that folks might be interested in.
You can share it.
So during the pandemic, when we were all distant from each other, we started a project to make new Advent banners. And they were, and I should be able to bring some up online, if not immediately in a moment. And the word for the week would be in the center in the largest font, but then in various other languages, I don't think we're unique in having done this. Various other languages, the word was written in there. What made it connected to people is that we had, I think, upwards of 40 different people cutting things out. They were distributed, the material had been placed on, on a, I don't know what the word is, like an interface to make it stiffer. And then so people cut it out, and it was all mounted, and we particularly included the languages of the people's origins, or that they had particular connections to. We have a woman whose daughter lives in Guam, so we use the native tongue of the language there. We use the local Indian word for something. We included Greek, we included Latin, we included everybody's origins, and it's lovely. And there's a little key, I guess, that gets inserted into the bulletin that includes the name. It's essentially all the different languages, because you can't always tell what language it is, in the same position on the sheet, and then a list of all the people who are involved in the cutting, and then to be added, now that we've got a few years behind us, on the back, a little story about how it came to be and why it came to be. And it's lovely. They're lovely banners. And I'll see if someone else wants to talk, or if they have any questions. I'll see if I can pull up a copy and share the screen.
Thank you. Anything else for Advent candle lighting? I did find there is it was available at one point. Somebody wrote a candle lighting song called A Candle is Burning to the tune of Away in a Manger. Sandra Dean, I have it in my archives, from Southminster United Church in Ottawa, and gave permission to use it back when I found it. And there are also a lot of candle lighting songs. One of them is in the Presbyterian hymnal, I think, that it just changed the word. Can't remember which one I'm thinking of, but
Light one candle to watch for Messiah.
that's it. That's it. Yep. Thank you. But I've also found, if your church is still, I know with pandemic offertory, I don't know if you're still doing a doxology. There are some lovely Christmas doxologies out there that you can find if you just Google Christmas doxology. I found one to O Tannenbaum, one to Bring a Torch, Jeanette Isabella, one to O Come, O Come, Emmanuel, one to Infant Holy, Infant Lowly. So I think one to It Came Upon a Midnight Clear, and one to What Child Is This? So there are a bunch out there if you're interested in doing something fun for we got somebody in the waiting room.
We used Peace Waits for Us at Advent.
A
couple of years ago, and I don't know what the tune is to. I just know I had to put the words in the bulletin.
Gotcha.
But that's one of the songs they sing, like the first verse, and then there's a call and response, and then they sing a second verse.
Nice.
We use one of the verses from We Three Kings of Orientar.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you for sharing that, Terry.
Yeah, this is the labeled version for the insert. It doesn't have the language listed on the actual back.
Nice. So another thought's a little bit out of the worship realm, and it really depends on your community. But one year I subscribed to, there's a Scottish Advent calendar, and they had shared the idea of doing a Las Posadas celebration. Las Posadas being like the festival, Mary and Joseph, making their way to Bethlehem. And I was serving a church in a village, and most of the people who were there lived close by. And so we asked people if they wanted to be part of the Las Posadas progression, and we took a Mary and Joseph nativity figures, and people signed up, and we actually traveled them from house to house, leaving in some extra days just because of people's schedules. And there was a receiving family and a bringing family, and then they eventually ended up in the sanctuary with great pomp and circumstance on Christmas Eve. It was kind of just a special way to get into people's houses now that we're not COVID, it's COVID. It was pretty special. So a little bit outside of the worship, but it was nice for that year. Other ideas, and then we'll come to the Christmas Eve question that was asked. Any other thoughts of artwork you've done before, or Advent lighting or series?
Yeah, well, Kelly's question about children's curriculum reminds me of Children's Illustrated Ministries has some good curriculum stuff too, and that we've used in different ways. And I think it may have even had some Sunday liturgy stuff. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly or not, but they're a good group to look into.
Okay, thanks.
We have our music director is a music teacher, and she took a Las Posadas unit from the schools, converted it for all 4 weeks of Advent singing the song and building in just a little element. It wasn't the whole service, but building in an element of it each week throughout. And then we as a skit, I guess, if you will, on the fourth Sunday of Advent, the kids all did the Las Posadas and traveled around the sanctuary asking for a place to stay.
Nice,
And it was nice.
nice.
So we have something that's not part of worship, but it's so important to our church in Ashland that we've done it for 35 years or more. And so I'll tell you a little bit about, it's called our Advent Fair. And it's a different twist on a craft fair. All the crafts fairs that you see around, you buy things, but at our Advent Fair, you make things. And it's after church, the first Sunday in Advent. And there's usually about probably a couple hundred people who show up, not just from the church, but from the community as well, to have lunch and make crafts to decorate their homes. And we also decorate the whole church outside with lots of greenery. We make wreaths and swags and centerpieces. And then there's things for children. There's gingerbread houses and painted cookies and all kinds of different ornaments. We try to put an emphasis on using natural materials. So we have little pine cone bird feeders and things made out of rounds of sliced wood. And every year it's a little different, but we usually have about maybe 15 or 20 different crafts that people can do. And it's really funny, the progression, because I've been doing the heading up for about 20 years, I think. And we started charging, well, we had always charged people for the supplies which we provide. And for a while we had tickets. It was a zoo. I mean, the kids kept coming back to mom and saying, I need more money for tickets. And then gradually we had a flat fee of a nominal fee. And a couple years ago, we stopped doing all money and made it free and have a tip jar. And we've made more money than we've ever made in the past. We always come out ahead. We never have gone into the hole. And people love it. And we also have a lot of homeless people that used to sleep at our church. One year they even slept at our church the night before and they helped us set up. But it's just nice to have this be available for the community and not have to charge them. Anyway, it's great. And it's a lot of work, but I usually have about 65 people helping me. And our church only has 100 people, so that's pretty good.
That's good. Thank you. So I want to pick up the question, Christmas Eve being on the Sunday, and any responses to what your churches are doing? Well, I guess we'll do a show of hands. How many churches are having the fourth Sunday of Advent on Christmas Eve, like the calendar suggests, and having a regular Sunday morning service? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was like 7 of us, 8, maybe. How many people are not having the Sunday morning service and are just focusing on the Sunday evening? Not seeing a lot. Those of you, who else is doing what other models are you doing?
Well, we're doing something that's maybe a combo. So we are having 2 services, a morning service and an evening service, but the morning service is going to be a brown bag Advent pageant or Christmas pageant kind of thing. So people grab parts out of the bag and then we call them up and it'll be terrible but beautiful and hopefully a lot of fun. And so I mean, because I'm trying to figure out, well, a lot of people I think are going to choose one. There's going to be some that do both, but I just feel like a lot of families are going to say, well, either we're going to do the morning or we're going to do the evening. We're not going to do both. And I think a lot of people will probably come to the Christmas Eve service at night. So I don't know. we'll see what happens. But so I wanted something that would be kind of flexible and low key for the morning.
I think that's a good idea to also set it off so distinctly. Last year when we had Christmas Day as a Sunday, we decided to do something, and this is the when I say the blessing of the small church, we knew we were probably going to get maybe 15, 20 people there. So we actually took the Luke 2 reading that's so familiar, and we cut it up into chunks, and we printed it out really big in the font really big, and we actually wrapped it up each piece, and we had people come up and read the line and then try to figure out where it went in the progression of the scripture. And it took quite a lot longer than I thought. And they did pretty good, but it was another way to be participatory in the scripture reading that we did together. So go ahead, Eileen.
I could be accused of being manipulative, but our bell choir always plays Christmas Eve. They always rehearse before church. We kind of are going to get those folks and their families on both services for sure. Just the way it falls. And I played around a lot with trying to figure out how it would work to do one or the other. And we just get totally different groups in the morning and in the evening, or in any year, you get a different group for the Sunday morning service versus the Christmas Eve service. And we just decided to go with what we had done. But as I looked back at it, I thought, well, I couldn't have done anything else.
Yeah. Thanks.
And most of our parishioners don't drive after dark.
Right.
So what we'll do is, because we have 2 services in the morning, we'll do a combined service at 10 o'clock instead of the 8 and 10. And then we'll do a community type Christmas Eve service at 7 p.m. So it's not just the church from 7 p.m. That's a community thing. And we have a lot of people that tend to show up for that because they can walk. So
we had been doing for the last 2 Christmases, because I've only been here, it's my 3rd Christmas. We had been doing a 5 o'clock outdoor service because we had a few folks that were still not coming back because of COVID. And it was like 15 minutes. Carols pretty much on the porch. And we decided this year that we're going to keep the morning service normal, and we're just going to do the 7 without the outdoor service. But we pick up about 20 people at that outdoor service on the porch. It's been kind of a nice thing. Pretty simple, followed by cocoa for those who want to linger. But on that note, I think one of the other things that and this came out of the pandemic. The church I was serving at the time was, as I mentioned, in a village. We did an evening, not on Christmas Eve. It was just a random day during Advent where we invited people to go outside their doors and sing. And so we called it the town was Louville. Fill Louville with song. And I stood on the porch of the church, and we had my little phone streaming us on Facebook, because that's what we were using at the time. And we just sent it out to people to sing along. And it was kind of a neat outdoor singing experience. Lucy. I see your drive there.
So you, yeah, you may hear some comments from the GPS as I speak. We have not done this yet, but I did see a church that had, after their, we're big enough that we have 2 Christmas Eve evening services, and this church also did, and they went out and Christmas caroled around the neighborhood after the first service, and I think that's just a great idea.
I can't convince our music people that that's what we should do, but oh well.
Yeah, and in a church I was in that was not on a busy road like we are, we would go out at the end of the Christmas Eve service and sing to the neighborhood, as a way of just letting people know the church was there. So if you're not on too busy of a road, that's a nice nice option.
Yeah, we actually collect people together probably a week or two before Christmas. And we go around to all of our shut-ins and they sing Christmas carols because they know they aren't going to be able to come
Right.
to the services. So.
Right. Any other ideas? I didn't tell you this year our worship is going to be on the names for God. We're using the Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. So we're using the Isaiah passage as a way to think about God as our theme this year. And we're using Walter Brueggemann has an Advent study called The Names for the Messiah that we're going to use in accompanying it. So it's not going to be as creative as other years yet. Our worship committee's meeting this week. So does anybody else settle on their series and want to share what they're doing? Maybe not, since you're here. You're trying to get ideas. Lucy, did you have another idea?
See this?
Oh,
but this is our Advent study book.
Uh-huh.
And
Nice.
I will most likely be making copies and sending out daily devotionals through Constant Contact.
Yep.
And then they'll do a weekly, and then they'll talk about everything that they read during the week.
Nice.
And most likely on Zoom. It's probably some of them will do Zoom, some will be in person. So.
Yeah. Lucy, did you have another?
What was it called?
Oh, you're muted, Susan.
It said stay awake.
Stay a while.
Oh,
Stay a while.
oh, I thought it said stay awake. Sorry.
Something we've done is United Church of Christ, one of their still speaking writers, has a book, and I think it's called What I've Always Wanted or something. I may be able to grab it and put it in the chat. But because bell choir meets and choir meets and the kids meet, we had a small group of adults studying it, but we opened up the opportunity to purchase it to everyone. So even the music director, she was able to read. It's a really cool book. Read the meditations during the week, and then she'd come in on Sunday and say, did you read Tuesdays or whatever? So we had a group read, if you will, and if you could come for the discussion, fine. But if you couldn't, you could still talk with people because we were all reading the same book. It is fairly lighthearted, and it is an awesome Advent study. In fact, we did it for 2 years. I will grab the title of it and put it in the chat. It's lighthearted and sponsored a lot of conversation.
Thanks.
I think the UCC devotional is fabulous each year, and it's a combination of different authors in addition to the book she's talking about. But boy, that's a great devotional.
Their devotionals are awesome, period.
And this is more general, but there is, speaking of UCC, there is a resource for worship that they put out called Seasons of the Spirit. And they sell it in quarters and they sell it annually. And there's I think it's called the Seasons of the Spirit Fusion is the worship planning. They have curriculum for it as well. But what's interesting about it is that it has the weekly prayers, but it also has stations that are built in. So if you want to do prayer stations or use them for Sunday school, you can, or do it as an after worship kind of experience. so there, I found that tends to be a pretty creative resource for liturgy throughout the year that I've used before. Did somebody else want to share? Thank you for the Eileen, the All I Really Want for Christmas by Quinn Caldwell. Good enough to repeat for the year. There you go. Other resources that people.
I couldn't believe they wanted to repeat it. I said, really? And when I kind of went ahead and ignored it, I was sorry. I didn't get to ignore it. And it's not very expensive either.
Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts? We've got about 5 minutes left in our hour.
You were talking about congregation participation.
Yep.
Last year, our liturgical artist started a big work of art, something with a angel and then a flowing coming down so it looked kind of like a river across the front of the sanctuary. The kids painted the river.
Nice.
One Sunday before church, and that's only about a half hour, so you can guess it was not it wasn't planned well, but it was okay. And then as the theme went along, and I'm sorry I can't remember the theme right now, our prayers or our concerns would be written on pieces of paper and made into that river, so they were posted up there all the way along through Advent to each Sunday. It was kind of cool because the kids did the posting. So the kids had a vested interest in not only their river, but what was up there.
Nice. Another theme that I just remembered that feels like it's actually quite appropriate for now was, I think we did a season of peace. For Advent, we used the Presbyterian Church does do a season of peace that's not now, but if you go to the website, they have these peace cards, and we gave people a stack of peace cards. We counted out 24 of them to do the like an Advent calendar, and we just talked each week about internal peace, being peaceful in our relationships with each other. And we kept broadening it to thinking about how to be advocates for peace in our world. So just given the way the world is now, that seems like that could be a really great theme for Advent.
Those are really good resources too on the website. They are really quite good.
Cherry's asked if, before we close in 3 minutes, any other ideas for collaborative conversations that you would like to talk about in the future. I hope you have found this helpful. I hope I haven't talked too much.
This is wonderful.
Lily, go ahead.
I think this is wonderful.
Can you repeat the resource again on the season of peace? Where can I find that resource?
So the Presbyterian on the Presbyterian website,
okay,
PCUSA.org. If you type in season of peace, you'll see it.
Okay.
It is, I believe, usually around it's September through or maybe October. It's right now till September to Peacemaking Sunday. I think that's usually how they pair it. I just kind of adapted it for Advent.
Do you order them from PCUSA or?
No, it's not. It's it was just the theme that they had.
Okay.
And there are some free resources on there, and some ideas for intergenerational peace fair that I've downloaded.
Okay.
Try to see if I had if I have a resource that I created, I will let you know.
I put a link in the chat, and they're mostly downloadable resources because I've used that for an adult class.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I jump in real quick, Lori?
Yep, go ahead.
Hearing some of the things that Lori has done in her own church, you can see why we asked her to facilitate this conversation. She has so much creativity in how she thinks through her worship services. So thank you for being willing to facilitate this. Very much appreciate it. And we do want to keep having these conversations on a monthly basis. And we are, as Sherry mentioned in the chat, looking to you all to help us form the themes and the topics. And so we have a long kind of running list going, but we'd love to, we really are forming it based on the feedback we get. So if you do get a minute before you hop off to write in the chat something that you'd really love to mind share with, that would be really helpful to us. So yeah, thank you all for being here today. So great. And thank you, Lori, for your leadership and helping us navigate our conversation. So
Welcome.
have a wonderful